Today I'm looking at an SLK 230. This one wouldn't start, so what we've done, or what I've done, is a few checks. I couldn't get anything that was going to point me in a direction from the doing a code on it in the big plug that's under there. So it's led me to doing a few checks, starting with some basics just for the direction, the CAN bus, the grounds, the power. We've got everything. We've got the crank. I was thinking, why is it not cranking? I went under there with a power probe and got the starter motor to crank, going to the small terminal on the starter motor. That was then turning the engine over, but it wouldn't start. So next thing I had was, let's check the cam and the crank. Maybe if it doesn't get a signal on the crank sensor, it's not going to start. That one was okay. We tested them up here at the engine ECU. Then we went to the cam sensor. There's no signal, but we also noticed out of the 3 wires, I keep saying we, out of the 3 wires, the power on the wire that's red with a blue stripe, there should be battery power, and there's not. And then I come over here, realised if I give it power and we crank it, because I can crank it with this, by giving it a ground on that white and red, I got a signal then once I gave that power, but only when I gave that power, and that was this relay here, which led us to this. If I touch that to make it, you can hear it come on and you can see the power. I'll put that in there because my scope's timed out. So I'm going to touch this with this pen and we get the power. When it's got the power there, we get a cam signal, and it also starts from the key. So basically what I'm saying is, after a few checks, and I kind of came up with a plan, check the powers, check the grounds, then it was like, they're okay. I don't know why it's not going, but the cam, the crank, ruled out the starter motor first. That worked if I powered it up, but it didn't work from the key. But it's all come back down. When we started looking for a cam sensor, there was no signal. The signal is on a yellow wire, yellow and grey. There was no signal, so then we're like, we've got the ground, but we don't have a power. I was like, is that 12 volts or is it 5 volts? So I looked at a wiring diagram. I got that wiring diagram from Tech for Techs, because I didn't have one on Autodata. Looked at that wiring diagram and it showed that goes to the injectors, and then I thought it's got to be 12 volts, so that's why we gave it 12 volts, and it worked, and one thing led us to here then, and that will start the car. So now we've got to check, are we getting control at the coil, and what's wrong with the coil? So we've got a direction at least. Right, what I've got, this is the fuse. It's got some fuses and relays that are soldered on the one side and they go on the other side, so you can't just pull them out. But you see where I have the paint that I marked it, so I remember which one it is now that I've got it away from the car. So these relays, when we activate them, what I was doing with the pen was just closing the relay like that, and that would let me start it. But if I go across these 2 small posts, like there and there, you see the power probe's lit up green, so we got continuity, and if I activate it, you see it closes like that. That's the horn on this, and then so on. They all do the same thing. I'll try and see it closes, and here's the one that doesn't work. See, it's lit up green on the screen, so we've got the same continuity. Nothing happens on that one. It's happening on other relays, but not on that one. And then again there. See, these all work when you activate it, but the one that doesn't work is the one we need. Nothing. I'll turn them over so it's the other way around in case there's something in that, but I don't think there will be. Okay, still nothing. So we're right to say we need a relay, and I'm going to unsolder it, or desolder it, and then put the new one on, because the guy managed to get one off eBay, not the whole lot, just the relay. So I'm going to put that on for him and then go back to the car and try it. Oh, one more thing, this, I'll have to put a link to, I don't know whether I can get a wiring diagram up for you. I was using one, but the same wire went to a few things. One of them was the cooling fan, temperature sensor. The temperature sensor didn't get any power. And I think because of that, for whatever reason, part of the ECU mustn't have been getting powered up, and the coolant temperature sensor had 0 volts, and when you put the ignition on, you couldn't start the car, but the fans were running full speed. It must have thought it was overheating, because it was a really low voltage. It starts off about 3.5 volts and goes down to about half a volt when it's hot. Well, this, because there was no voltage, it was just putting fans on. So that's another thing, that if you've got that situation not going on with your car, it might be this sensor here, or this sensor, this relay that's right under the big fuse. It may be that one that's not working on yours if you've got no crank and nothing happening, and the fan comes on, the blower fan, radiator fan. So that might be something if you've got the same problem. So I'll change this out, and then I'll go and put it on the car and see if it works. That's it removed now. It did take quite a while actually. It wasn't as easy as the first go with that tool made it look. I ended up going for a solder and just taking it off as much as I could, because I got these solders that you could see that had to come off, but we've also got on the other side it's soldered. If we look at, see these ones that are there, the solders obviously ran right through quite a way, so there's quite a bit to try and remove until it would come through. So in the end, what did I do? I got as much solder off both sides as I could. This one's only got a small sort of tip, so it was like I couldn't go directly over the pins unless it was the small ones. Those two and those two, that was okay for that. I could pull that right off quite quick. But the larger pins, this has still got a pin through there, that's okay. That was 2 pins come through the same hole on that one. That, they were a bit more tricky, and I ended up just using this stuff. And even tried this quick chip, but I wasn't able to get it off. So with using the braided copper and lots of flux, we got it off, and I had to in the end put this heat gun on whilst I was heating it after removing all the copper, after removing all the solder. So I didn't want more solder to fall through the holes and resolder it as I'm trying to take it off. So once I was sure that I'd removed as much as I could with all these bits and pieces, then I had to go round and round and round and round. It was probably a couple of minutes, and it was like, oh, I don't want to put too much heat in the board, but eventually you could see it starting to fall out. So like I say, it wasn't an easy job. I would say if it was me doing this in the future, I would probably just use a continuity tester and see which pin they come out to, and just splice a normal relay into the wires, so when it's getting switched on, it would just have a different relay switching it on externally to this, rather than going for this way. It's probably a good way to do it this way, but it's tricky. It's probably just as easy. I could have connected a 4-pin relay external to make the contacts across here. That's what we're trying to do. So just a thought, I could have figured out which pin goes where with a continuity tester. Now I've put the new relay in there. I'm resting it on that handle of the screwdriver so that the pins stay all the way up. It's just resting lightly, then I'll flux it and solder it. That should be a lot easier than removing it. That's it soldered on now. So now I'm going to go and test it, and if it works I'll go back to the customer and put it back on the car. Is it working now? New relay back on the K40, I think it was called a K40 relay board. Fitted it, cranked it, and it starts. And the fan's not running as well. There's no voltage at the coolant temperature sensor and the fan was coming on. There's also no voltage at the, this isn't a 5 volt, that's a 12 volt for the camshaft position. There's no voltage there. As soon as we fix the relay, it fixes the fault. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody. Thanks for watching.